Great white shark sinks fishing boat near Florida. Survivors tell their story. Mayday, mayday, this is the charter vessel Blue Horizon. We're taking on water fast, about 15 miles southeast of Key Largo. Something's hit us. It's a shark. A massive shark, it's still circling. We have injured. The radio transmission from Captain Ray Donovan cut off abruptly as another violent impact rocked the 32-foot fishing charter. Screams echoed across the open water as the boat listed sharply to port. "It's coming back!" someone shouted as the massive shadow passed beneath them again. The morning fishing expedition had transformed into a desperate fight for survival in seconds, with 6 passengers and crew now scrambling for life jackets as the relentless predator continued its assault on their rapidly sinking vessel. Michael Hernandez had been looking forward to this fishing trip for months. At 43 years old, the Miami-based orthopedic surgeon rarely took time off from his demanding schedule at South Florida Medical Center. His colleagues often joked that Michael was married to his work, which wasn't entirely untrue. After his divorce 3 years ago, he had thrown himself even more deeply into his practice, becoming one of the most sought-after sports medicine specialists in Florida. This charter fishing expedition was actually a birthday gift from his sister Eleanor, who worried constantly about her brother's work-life balance. "You need to remember there's a world outside those hospital walls," she had told him when presenting the gift certificate. Michael had finally relented, booking the trip during a rare 3-day weekend. The other passengers included James and Patricia Wilson, a retired couple from Pennsylvania, celebrating their 40th wedding anniversary with a Florida vacation. James, a former high school principal with a passion for deep-sea fishing, had been particularly excited about the possibility of landing a marlin. His wife Patricia, a retired librarian with a fear of deep water but a deeper love for her husband, had reluctantly agreed to join rather than spend their anniversary apart. The Wilsons had 3 grown children and 5 grandchildren waiting for them back home, all of whom had contributed to this anniversary trip as a family gift. Rounding out the passengers was Lucas Chen, a 26-year-old marine biology graduate, student from the University of Miami, who had booked the trip both for recreation and to observe pelagic fish species for his research. Lucas was brilliant, but somewhat socially awkward, with a photographic memory for marine species and behavior patterns. His parents had emigrated from Taiwan before he was born, and they had saved diligently to fund his education. Lucas planned to complete his PhD within the next year, focusing on predator-prey relationships in coastal ecosystems. The Blue Horizon was captained by Raymond Ray Donovan, a 52-year-old former Coast Guard officer who had operated charter fishing boats in the Florida Keys for over 15 years after retiring from military service. With his weathered face, silver-flecked beard and perpetual tan, Ray looked every bit the stereotypical sea captain. He was respected among the local fishing community for his knowledge of the waters and his emphasis on safety. His first mate that day was Tanya Rodriguez, a 29-year-old with 5 years of experience on charter boats. Tanya had moved to Florida from Cuba as a teenager and had worked her way through college by crewing on fishing vessels. She was saving money to eventually buy her own boat. The waters southeast of Key Largo form part of the Florida Straits, where the Gulf Stream flows northward between Florida and the Bahamas. On May 17, 2025, the day began with perfect conditions for deep-sea fishing. Clear skies, moderate temperatures around 82 degrees, and a gentle breeze creating just enough wave action to attract feeding fish. The sea was a brilliant azure blue stretching to the horizon, with excellent visibility through the crystal-clear water. Captain Ray had chosen this particular location, known locally as The Drop, because of its reputation as a prime fishing spot where the continental shelf falls away dramatically, creating upwellings that attract baitfish and, consequently, larger predatory species. The depth here changed rapidly from about 100 feet to over 600 feet, making it ideal for species like tuna, mahi-mahi, and marlin, the game fish his clients were hoping to catch. Standard safety equipment aboard the Blue Horizon included life jackets for all passengers, emergency position indicating radio beacons, EPIRBs, flares, life rafts, first aid kits, and VHF radios. Captain Ray had conducted the usual safety briefing before departure from the marina at 6:30 a.m., though as with most routine briefings, the passengers had paid only partial attention, more excited about the fishing ahead than considering potential emergencies. The morning had started peacefully enough, with the group catching several respectable mahi-mahi and a small tuna. The boat had anchored at the drop around 10:15 a.m. and the mood aboard was jovial. The Wilsons were taking photos to send to their grandchildren. Michael was enjoying the rare feeling of relaxation as he cast his line into the deep blue water, and Lucas was alternating between fishing and making notes about the marine life visible in the clear waters. What none of them knew was that this particular area had recently seen an unusual pattern of great white shark activity. While great whites were not unheard of in Florida waters, they typically preferred cooler temperatures and rarely ventured this far south, especially in May, when water temperatures were rising. Marine biologists would later theorize that shifting ocean currents due to climate change had altered traditional migration patterns, bringing this particular shark farther south than normal. The massive great white that approached the blue horizon that morning was a mature female, estimated at 18 feet long and weighing approximately 4,000 pounds. She had distinctive scarring along her right flank, possibly from a previous encounter with a boat propeller or another shark. Later analysis of the incident would suggest the shark may have been in an unusual physiological state, possibly affected by the warmer-than-typical water temperatures or following a large school of prey fish that had drawn her to the area. The first indication that something was different came when the smaller fish they had been catching suddenly disappeared. "That's strange," Captain Ray had commented, checking his fish finder equipment. "Something spooked them." Tanya, who was helping James Wilson with his fishing line at the stern, was the first to notice the large shadow moving beneath the boat. "Cap, you might want to take a look at this," she called, her voice carrying a note of concern that immediately caught everyone's attention. Ray moved to the stern, his experienced eyes scanning the water. "That's a big fish," he said quietly, reaching for his binoculars for a better look when the shadow moved farther out. The captain's expression changed dramatically when he got a clearer view. "Everyone move toward the center of the boat," he ordered calmly but firmly. "Tanya, get the engine started. We're going to move to a different location." Lucas, with his training in marine biology, had also spotted the distinctive shape. "That's a great white," he said, his voice a mixture of scientific excitement and growing concern. "It's huge, much bigger than they typically get in these waters." "All the more reason to give it some space," Ray replied, moving toward the wheelhouse. Patricia Wilson clutched her husband's arm, her fear of deep water suddenly very relevant. Michael Hernandez, recognizing the tension in the captain's voice, began gathering the fishing gear without being asked, his medical training having instilled in him a quick response to emergency situations. The shark made a wide circle around the boat, its dorsal fin occasionally breaking the surface. Ray had just started the engine when the great white made its first pass directly under the vessel. Everyone felt the boat shudder slightly as the massive predator brushed against the hull, seemingly investigating this intrusion into its hunting ground. "That's not normal behavior," Lucas said quietly to Michael, who had moved next to him at the railing. "Great whites typically don't show much interest in boats unless there's something attracting them." "Like what?" Michael asked, watching the fins circle back around. "Blood in the water, fish guts, chum, anything that might read as food," Lucas explained. "Or sometimes they're just curious." "Well, I vote we don't satisfy its curiosity," Michael replied, eyeing the massive shadow now clearly visible in the crystal-clear water. Captain Ray had increased speed, heading away from the drop toward shallower water, hoping the shark would lose interest. For a few minutes it appeared to work as the shark fell behind. Ray radioed to nearby vessels, warning them about the unusually large great white in the area. Tanya was securing loose equipment in case they needed to make a faster exit, while trying to keep the increasingly nervous passengers calm. It was 10:47 a.m. when the first attack occurred. Without warning, the shark surged from below, striking the boat's hull near the engine with tremendous force. The impact threw everyone off balance, with Patricia Wilson falling hard against a seat, cutting her arm on a fishing hook. The small amount of blood that dripped onto the deck and eventually into the water through the scuppers would later be considered a possible trigger for what followed. "What the hell was that?" James Wilson shouted, helping his wife to her feet, while Michael quickly moved to examine her wound. "It rammed us," Ray called from the wheelhouse, checking his instruments for any sign of damage. "Tanya, check the bilge." The first mate disappeared below deck momentarily, returning with a grim expression. "We're taking on a little water, Cap. Not serious yet, but that hit did some damage." The shark circled back, now moving with the more purposeful pattern of a predator that has identified prey. Lucas, despite his own fear, was watching with the detached fascination of a scientist. It's in investigation mode, he said to no one in particular. The impact was a test. Well, I don't want to stick around for the exam, Ray responded, pushing the throttle forward to increase their speed. The boat was making good progress towards shallower water when the second impact came, more violent than the first. This time, the shark struck the stern from below at tremendous speed, its massive body actually lifting the back of the boat momentarily before crashing back down. The force of the collision damaged the propeller shaft, immediately affecting the boat's steering and speed. More alarmingly, the impact had created a significant breach in the hull. Alarms began to sound as water poured in faster than the pumps could handle. "Mayday, mayday!" Ray was now on the radio, calling for emergency assistance, while Tanya rushed to distribute life jackets. The shark continued to circle, occasionally bumping the boat with less force but clear purpose, as if testing different points of the hull. "Why is it attacking the boat?" Patricia cried, clutching her life jacket as Michael finished bandaging, her arm with supplies from the first aid kit. "It's not normal behavior," Lucas replied, his scientific demeanor cracking under the stress. "This is more like what you'd see with an orca, not a great white." The next 15 minutes became a desperate struggle as the boat took on more water and listed increasingly to one side. Ray had deployed the emergency life raft and was coordinating their evacuation. The Coast Guard had responded to their Mayday call and dispatched a rescue vessel, but the nearest help was still 20 minutes away. The shark, meanwhile, continued its methodical assault on the failing vessel. "We need to get everyone into the life raft," Ray ordered, his Coast Guard training evident in his calm efficiency, despite the dire situation. "But we need to time it right. That shark is still circling." The boat was now sitting dangerously low in the water with the port side nearly submerged. They would have only one chance to transfer everyone safely to the life raft. Ray watched the shark's movements, trying to predict its pattern. "When I give the word, everyone moves at once. The raft is secured to the starboard side. Tanya will go first to stabilize it, then the passengers, then me." Michael, using his belt as a makeshift tourniquet for Patricia's arm, which was bleeding, more heavily than he'd initially thought, nodded grimly. "We'll be ready." The shark made another pass, this time at the already damaged stern, hitting it with such force that a section of the railing tore away. The boat shuddered and tilted further, water now washing across the deck. "Now!" Ray shouted. As the shark moved away from the starboard side, "Everyone move!" Tanya leapt into the life raft, stabilizing it as James helped Patricia across. Lucas followed, then Michael. As Ray prepared to leave the wheelhouse, making one final distress call with their updated position, the shark returned with unprecedented fury. It struck directly beneath the captain, the impact throwing him against the console. Before he could recover, the boat shifted violently as the shark bit into the fiberglass hull, tearing away a large section. Ray was thrown into the water on the port side, the opposite side from the life raft. "Captain!" Tanya screamed, watching in horror. As Ray surfaced, bloody from a head wound sustained in the fall, he began swimming desperately toward the life raft, but the massive dorsal fin was already cutting through the water directly toward him. What happened next would be recounted by the survivors with varying details, but all agreed on the essentials. Michael Hernandez, without hesitation, grabbed a gaff hook from the life raft's emergency kit and dove into the water. Swimming with powerful strokes, he intercepted the captain just as the great white approached. Whether by incredible luck or skill, Michael managed to strike the shark's sensitive gill area with the gaff as it made its pass, causing it to veer away momentarily, just long enough for Tanya to help pull both men into the life raft. The blue horizon slipped beneath the waves minutes later, leaving the 5 survivors huddled in the life raft as the shark continued to circle. For nearly 40 minutes, they watched in terror as the massive predator bumped and tested the inflatable craft, occasionally attempting to bite the pontoons, but seemingly confused by the unfamiliar material and taste. The Coast Guard rescue vessel arrived at 11:53 a.m., firing warning flares that finally drove the shark away. All 5 survivors were safely transferred aboard, with Ray and Patricia requiring immediate medical attention, the captain for a severe concussion and lacerations, and Patricia for significant blood loss from her arm wound. The medical team aboard the Coast Guard vessel worked quickly to stabilize both patients. Ray drifted in and out of consciousness, muttering about the shark's unusual behavior. "Never seen anything like it," he repeated. 20 years on the water, never seen anything like it." Patricia Wilson received blood transfusions en route to shore, with Michael Hernandez assisting the Coast Guard medics using his medical expertise. Upon reaching Key Largo, Ray and Patricia were immediately transferred to Mariners Hospital. Ray was diagnosed with a severe concussion, multiple lacerations and 2 broken ribs. Patricia required surgery to repair damage to her brachial artery, but doctors were optimistic about her recovery. The other survivors, James Wilson, Lucas Chen, Michael Hernandez and Tanya Rodriguez, were treated for minor injuries and shock before being released. The Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, FWC, immediately launched an investigation into the incident. The wreckage of the Blue Horizon was located 2 days later, using sonar equipment, confirming the extensive damage to the hull consistent with multiple high-force impacts. Underwater cameras deployed to the site captured brief footage of what appeared to be the same great white shark still patrolling the area, allowing researchers to document its unusual size and distinctive scarring. Dr. Elena Morales, a marine biologist with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, was among the experts consulted about the shark's abnormal behavior. While great whites are apex predators, they typically don't attack boats with such persistence, she explained to investigators. This level of aggression toward a vessel suggests either a territorial response we don't fully understand, or possibly some physiological factor affecting the shark's behavior. Some researchers proposed that changing ocean temperatures might be driving behavioral changes in marine predators, while others suggested the possibility of neurological issues in this particular shark. Lucas Chen, upon his release from medical care, immediately contacted his research advisors at the University of Miami, who incorporated his first-hand observations into an ongoing study of predator behavior in changing marine environments. The incident received extensive media coverage, with headlines ranging from sensationalist, "Monster shark hunts humans in Florida waters," to more measured scientific analysis. Interviews with the survivors became primetime material, with Michael Hernandez's heroic rescue of Captain Ray drawing particular attention. Despite offers for book deals and exclusive interviews, Michael returned to his medical practice within a week, uncomfortable with the media spotlight. For the survivors, the psychological impact proved as significant as the physical injuries. James Wilson, who had watched his wife nearly bleed to death, developed symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder and sought therapy upon returning to Pennsylvania. Patricia's recovery from surgery was complicated by recurring nightmares about the attack. Tanya Rodriguez took a leave of absence from charter boat work, unsure if she would ever return to the profession she had once loved. Captain Ray Donovan faced the longest physical recovery, with his concussion causing lingering cognitive issues that threatened his maritime career. During his hospital stay, he repeatedly reviewed the incident, questioning his decisions and wondering if he could have better protected his passengers. "I've respected the ocean my whole life," he told investigators from his hospital bed. "Sometimes it reminds us that respect isn't enough. You need fear too, a healthy fear that keeps you humble out there." The incident prompted the Florida Keys Charter Boat Association to review their safety protocols, particularly regarding unusual marine life encounters. New guidelines were implemented requiring captains to report all sightings of large sharks and to maintain a greater minimum distance from such predators. Additional emergency equipment, including more robust distress signaling devices and improved life rafts, became mandatory for all charter operations in the region. Scientists from several oceanographic institutions used the incident to highlight the need for more research into how climate change might be affecting marine predator behavior and migration patterns. What happened to the Blue Horizon may be an isolated incident, Dr. Morales noted in her official report, but it could also represent an early warning of behavioral changes we need to better understand. For Lucas Chen, the experience dramatically reshaped his graduate research. His dissertation, eventually titled Predatory Behavior Modifications in Finds in Carcharodon carcharias, in response to environmental stresses, incorporated his first-hand observations from that day and went on to be published in a leading marine biology journal. The academic community recognized his unique perspective as both scientist and survivor, bringing attention to the complex interactions between marine predators and changing oceanic conditions. The Florida Tourism Board faced a delicate balancing act in the aftermath, needing to address safety concerns while preventing undue panic about shark encounters, which remained statistically rare despite the dramatic nature of the Blue Horizon incident. New educational materials were developed for tourists, emphasizing respect for marine predators and proper safety protocols on the water. The great white responsible for sinking the Blue Horizon was never captured or tagged, though possible sightings were reported periodically along the eastern seaboard in the months following the incident. Marine biologists continued to monitor unusual shark activity in the region, creating an alert system for charter captains and recreational boaters. For those who survived that day 15 miles southeast of Key Largo, the experience forged an unexpected bond. Though they came from different backgrounds and returned to separate lives, they maintained contact through a group text chain they simply called the Horizon. They shared recovery updates, article links about shark research, and occasionally, late at night when sleep wouldn't come, their ongoing fears and nightmares. 1 year after the incident, on May 17, 2026, the 5 survivors met at a small ceremony in Key Largo, where a memorial plaque was placed at the marina. It read simply, "Blue Horizon, May 17, 2025, a reminder that we are visitors in the ocean's realm." As they stood together looking out at the azure waters that had nearly claimed their lives, Michael Hernandez quietly observed, "The sea keeps its own counsel. We can study it, sail it, fish it, but we never truly know it. That's what makes it both beautiful and terrifying." No one disagreed as they watched the sunlight dancing across the water, each lost in their own memories of the day.